logo on the side of your helmet and not the name on your back.
Yes, sir.
Because we know what it represents. It represents everybody here you see and everybody you can't that we've talked about. I'm here to strain with you, men. I swear to God, I'm here to strain with you. Let's go. Everything you got, strain with everything you got. Let's go. Bills on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bills.
You're listening to the Off Tackle with John Fina show with your host, Joe Miller. Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Off Tackle with John Fina show, brought to you by, right now, nobody. But we're here anyway on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. You're holding your ear. You're either trying to get the key to the song or you're getting a signal from the coach. What's happening right now?
I mean, I know this is unbelievable, but I was turning up your volume so I could hear you better. Usually I'm trying to mute.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into the Off Tackle with John Fina show on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. It's so good to have all of you. My name is Joe Miller. I am the honored person that gets the opportunity to sit here every season with you, John Fina, and talk about the Buffalo Bills and lob softballs at you, hopefully, and not make you too mad. But we have some fun on this show, and there's a lot of give and take and a lot of humor, and people love this show, and they love you, and they love your comments. There was a where was it? Someplace there was already people messaging me about ask John this, ask John that. What did John think of this? What did John think of that? And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, it's already started.
Well, what about what did Joe think? I mean, Joe's got some pretty hot takes too.
Well, I think I vomited all over the YouTube airwaves last night on the Overreaction post-game show. Did you catch any of that by chance?
You know what, man? I really wanted to listen to it, but with the Jim Kelly fundraiser and golf today, I honestly spent some time with Ruben Brown today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I drove to the tournament with him and drove back with him. So I didn't really, that was when I was going to do it. I didn't even know Ruben was coming. That's how, crazy busy our lives get. We don't communicate with people enough. And anyway, so I did miss it. I'd like to go back and listen to it. I might just do that because I'm pretty worn out right now.
let the soothing sounds of Joe Miller's voice put you to sleep.
Yeah. Ooh.
So, yeah, I've got some thoughts we can discuss and we can talk about. I know you've got some thoughts on this football game. But before we do that, first things first, we are Super Chat Live. So if anybody has a comment or a question or a concern and they'd like to get John's attention, please feel free to jump over to YouTube in the comment section there, throw up a super chat. It'll show up on the screen nice and colorful. It'll get our attention and we'll be able to respond to you right away. If we don't respond to you in just a normal comment, please know that we are not ignoring you, but it is so good to see so many awesome familiar faces that have returned for the show. Richard Rush is in the room. Daniel Gowers is in the room. Jessica Tennis is in the room. She's commenting to me that I needed a six-pack. I got a six-pack. Do you want to see it?
Oh,
is that a no? Nobody wants to see it?
The family friendly.
Matt Byram is in the show. What's new with Ruben? He asks. But yeah, let's start there. So why don't we start with the Jim Kelly Gala and the Kelly? It's Kelly for kids, right? It's not Hunter's Hope. It's Kelly for kids.
It's Kelly for kids, right? And Jim brings in not just former Buffalo Bills, but celebrities, players from other teams. You went with me last year,
yes.
Right? We saw a great number of legends of the game.
Yes.
And a few celebrities. It was a different rotation this year, so I didn't see a lot of familiar faces, but quite a few familiar as well. So it was nice. There were new faces, I guess what I'm trying to say, very clumsily.
My most amazing takeaway from last year, and you've heard me tell this story probably more than twice, was you and I sitting leaning on the bar, right? They had the big giant square bar in the middle of the giant room.
Oh, you would have loved it. It was hexagonal this year.
It probably made more sense. It was probably easier to serve that way than the giant square one. And we're sitting there, and John says to me, and if this embarrasses you, I apologize. But John says to me, there's a guy over there making eyes at me. Who's that guy? Do you remember?
No.
We're sitting there and I'm like, what guy? You're like, that guy right over there is staring at me like he knows exactly who I am. And I can't like right now, I can't remember who that is. Who is that guy? And I look over and it's John Randall, Hall of Fame
Oh,
defensive
yeah,
tackle
yeah.
for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Vikings. But
Well, I
that's not
didn't
the
recognize him because he didn't have the eye black coming
right,
down, looking
right.
fierce.
Yeah, the John
And
Randall who?
John was not here this year,
Really?
but he was great last year. It was a lot of fun.
Well,
And what really stuck out, of course, was I was able to bring my daughter up
yeah,
from Florida, so Mimi came,
yeah.
and she got to get her picture taken with Bruce and Jim and Daryl and a number of other guys. And she's a big fan of Buffalo Bills football, and she's really into the NFL. She's playing all these games online, and she loved it. It was a lot of fun. We got to spend some great time together. It was really kind of a dad-daughter trip.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Well, John was special last year, and the engagement that I had with him and the interaction and that you and I and him had was great. So I'm sure that his presence was missed. Who was there that kind of caught your attention? Who was there that kind of put you in that? Oh my gosh, this person's here.
Well, Anthony Munoz was here again.
Again,
Right?
gotcha.
So
Very good.
it's always good to see the greatest legend of left tackledom ever, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's always just something spectacular. Chris Berman.
Yes, I saw that.
Chris Berman was there, and I got to have a nice chat with him.
Yeah.
He, I walked up and said, "Hey, Chris, I don't know if you remember him," and he's like, "Are you kidding me? I remember you." And I don't know if you know how the game works, Joe, and to our lovely fans in the chat here, but sometimes things leak to the guys that are running the draft, maybe leak, or maybe it was just a great guess. But Berman was saying, I had the inside track that you might be that pick.
Really?
And I had to play it back. I had to play it back a little bit because, you don't want to upset the apple cart. But he kind of took me through his going of the story and the guys that they were gonna pick. So, he was like, I had 3 or 4 names, and it was really fun. He's a super guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to him too, and you realize that you're talking to a guy who literally made ESPN a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't imagine where that network would go without Chris Berman doing his shtick.
Yeah.
And making everything so exciting. The fastest 3 minutes of football, that Monday night halftime, just his show, working with Tom. It was, just incredible.
NFL prime time, and then
Yeah.
they brought it back and put it on NFL Plus. It's like why they totally or ESPN Plus. They put it someplace where nobody could find it, which was awful last year because to your point. So what you're telling me though through this whole thing is there are 2 people that knew that you were a first round draft pick: Bill Belichick and Chris Berman.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome.
Bill Belichick knew a little sooner, I guess.
So who was it that just asked a question? So yeah, Jessica Tennis is asking, is he predicting the Buffalo Bills and the 49ers again this year? Because that was his consistent pick for several years.
I guess it just depends on how the quarterback out there in 49er land does, right?
He's supposed to play. He's supposed to start the season.
You're right. A kid from Phoenix, Arizona, by the way.
Oh.
Good football player. I guess that's not a bad guess, right? I mean, NFC is kind of hard to pick. You got the Eagles and the Niners. I would say, I would say the NFC is a little easier to pick than the AFC.
Yeah.
But that's as good a bet as any. I like it. I like the Bills being in the top 2, so I'm going with it.
The AFC is hard to pick because there's so many good teams, so many good quarterbacks. The NFC is kind of like it's a little bit of a crapshoot. And I heard somebody today pick the Cowboys, and I was like, "There's no way the Cowboys are going." And McKenna from the backseat goes, "Why can't the Cowboys go?" I was like, "Because Dak he chokes and not chokes. He just has a difficult time in big games." So I just can't see the Cowboys making it to the Super Bowl this year. But we'll see. The 49ers and Bills would be interesting, right?
Yeah, it would be great. I don't know, where is the Super Bowl this year? I haven't looked it up. I've forgotten already if I ever knew.
I know this answer, and it's not coming to me. Do you want me to Google it?
No. I think somebody in the chat will throw it up in there in a second. I dare them.
So that's good. I'm
them.
glad you had a good time. How did you? We'll wrap up this session real quick with how did you hit him? How'd you hit him around the chasing the white ball around the green grass of Western New York?
Oh,
Vegas. It's in Vegas.
There's nothing better than playing golf in Western New York in the summer. I mean, it couldn't have been a more perfect day. I hit him really well, and I had a natural birdie on a par 4.
Ooh.
I was crushing my driver. I knocked an approach iron about 123 yards in, about 3 feet from the stick, and my team said, you gotta drain it.
You gotta drain it.
Yeah, so I knocked it in for the birdie.
Nice.
And, and like anything with golf, I'm a pro. 8 shots every round.
Right. Of course.
But after that, no. I shouldn't even be shining the pros' shoes.
It sounds like you're getting better at golf, though.
I am. I'm getting a lot better. And the function was for 12 years. I was coaching my kids. The kids were young, just like everybody, and I played about 12 times in 12 years.
Yeah.
And then in the past 16 months, I've probably played 12 or 14 times. So
yeah.
Like anything, it's weird. Like the harder I try, the luckier I get.
So I used to play a ton of golf. And for 9, I would consistently shoot 40 to 43. Played a lot of 9 because I was in a golf league, so we played a lot of 9. So if I played 18, I would break 90, which wasn't always, but I could break 90. And then I tore my meniscus and didn't do anything about it for a couple of years. Didn't play a whole lot of golf and just had it repaired. And like my swing is back, like all of my distance is back. Like I don't there was nothing that was ever painful about rotating on a torn meniscus in my left knee, but my body was doing something. My body was like, no. And like,
you're preventing yourself from making that motion. I get it.
Right. So now it's better. And now I'm playing golf and I've got the itch to play a lot of golf. So you and I still have not yet golfed. We've got to get out and golf. So if I have to come to Tucson.
Yeah. Come on out
to golf with you.
I'll tell you, one of the highlights of this weekend, just going back to it, Mimi texted me before her flight and said, I've never had beef on weck.
No way.
Yeah. So I took her to my favorite place. Everybody's got their favorite. I don't want to get into a weck or wing war on this episode.
Or Charlie the Butcher.
I went to Schwabel's. That's my place.
Nice.
So
right there in West Seneca?
Right in West Seneca, in the hamlet of Ebenezer.
That's right. Yeah.
And then we went over to the Bills store. We refreshed our Bills gear a little bit, although this is the Jim Kelly tournament.
That logo's hot. That logo's hot.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, the logo's hot.
So, and then, there's nothing more beautiful than a casual drive down through the southern tier to check out all the farmland, to see what Western New York's all about. We ended up in Ellicottville. We grabbed a coffee, headed back up to the city, met up with some old friends of mine who I've known since I've been here. And, I always do this. I think I'm going to create some downtime for myself, but I don't. And I end up going from activity to activity to activity. And I end up leaving here like more exhausted than when I arrived. And I came in on the red eye.
Right. So how are you feeling? Are you more exhausted or are you rested this time?
No, I feel pretty good. I crashed early last night. The party was nice. And then when the band picked up and it was, too loud to really have conversations.
Yeah.
I just hit the rack. I was probably asleep by 10 o'clock. So I got a good amount of rest before the round today. Played with great people from United Airlines. And
nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've driven that drive to Ellicottville a million times, not to Ellicottville, but to someplace else in the southern tier. And I talked you through driving across the gorge, across the Cattaraugus Creek. And I'm going to be honest with you, at 50 years old and having driven across it thousands of times, it still is amazing when I drive across that bridge. It's just like you can't not look dangerously over your shoulder into the gorge. Like it's just so beautiful.
It is. It really is.
I'm glad that Mimi got to take that in. I'm glad that you got to spend some time with your daughter. Girl dad is the best dad. So you know how I feel about that. I'm fond of girl dads and you are one and so am I. So that's awesome. But let's transition and talk a little bit about this football game.
Yep.
And there's some positions of note that you kind of were watching, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, the preseason is great. Hope springs eternal. You kind of brush off the ending of last season. If you're smart, you kind of got to let that go. You can't replay last year. And I think you could tell the type of people that are really optimistic. They really put that behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And the preseason is fun because it's not it's not the same way we watch a regular season game. You're looking for things that pop out to you as a fan, right? You're trying to assess talent, and you're not looking at the game in its, win-loss format, drive format. You're looking at individual players.
Right.
So, that's the way you approach it. That's how people get excited. They pick their favorites from the rookies and the new signees, right? The free agents. And what I was really interested in seeing is, are we going to see anything new from the defense?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to see a little bit of running game, get a little taste of James Cook? And then obviously, assess some quarterback play. I love the battles going on at corner.
Yeah.
I love the battles going on at wide receiver. I think that by and large, those two position groups, if they were a little better last year, we might have done well at that Cincinnati game. To be fair, injuries at corner were really what killed us.
Yeah, for sure. So on yesterday's overreaction post-game show, I talked about QB2 was a position I talked about. I talked about RB1, and then I talked about actually the tight end situation a little bit. But the QB2 one is a little bit everywhere. A lot of people are talking about just who is going to be the backup quarterback to Josh Allen, and I'm a firm believer, as is Pat Moran and several other people, that there's a good possibility that the backup quarterback to Josh Allen might not be on this roster right now. I think we know what we have in Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley loves the city. He loves his football team. He's a little bit limited as a passer. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful locker room dude. Like, we know that him and Josh are very good friends. He's got a wonderful family. But when you think about a guy that's got to win you 50% of your games, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 6, if something were, God forbid, to happen to Josh Allen for a couple games, and you've still got to, especially this year with the teams we're going to play in this division, Dolphins, Jets, you're always hunting for that spot in the playoffs this year. And while Kyle Allen wasn't awful, and he had there were some drops, there's some things that weren't his fault, and as much as the pass might have been ill-advised, it was a tipped ball that got intercepted for the pick six. I'm not sure that he's wowing us necessarily.
Okay, that's fair. But I don't, there aren't a lot of teams with the luxury of having a backup who is that guy. And you're never going to know what he's going to be able to do unless he gets those reps.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a little tepid response. I don't think there's a reason to hit the panic button. You got to hope that if your quarterback comes out, it's for a very limited time.
Right.
But if your quarterback is out for a long time, not many teams survive that. I mean, San Francisco's an outlier, right, from last year.
Well, they were surprised by Brock.
They were surprised. It was a total outlier. You don't typically get that kind of play from your backup. So I take that with a grain of salt at this point. You could say Matt Barkley's limited. But if you're a good game manager and you don't make stupid mistakes, I think you can pull together those 3 out of 6 victories, maybe 2 out of 4, whatever it takes until your guy comes back. And I think Matt Barkley's capable of that. They obviously changed the offense. They'll do certain things differently.
Yeah.
But nobody is in that position of luxury that I'm aware of. You'd know better than I do.
We've been a little spoiled, right? So Mitch Trubisky, regardless of what you think of him, has won games in this league, and I know Kyle Allen has as well. I think he's 15 and 16 or something like that. I don't remember his exact numbers. And Case Keenum, with Stephon Diggs, the Minneapolis Miracle, like Case Keenum has a little bit of a history of winning football games in the NFL. So I think we might have been a little bit, to your point, spoiled. And God forbid, right? The hope is that nothing ever happens to your starter. And something did happen to Josh last year, and he didn't miss a game. He probably could have used the opportunity to possibly sit a game or two. But again, that's not in his nature. That's not who he is.
Right.
But I'm trying to think around the league while I'm talking, if there's anybody that's kind of in that catbird seat of having a backup quarterback, that's just the guy. The interesting thing for me about Brock Purdy,
you would think that if there was one, somebody in the chat would say, "Oh no, this team is too deep at QB." But again, and this was a great point brought up by Matt, longtime vet, right? So I think that the fear when you bring somebody off the bench when they're young is
Yeah.
that they make just stupid, erratic mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Blind throws. Being a good game manager, what I said earlier was it's not the decision when to throw, but when not to throw, when to throw it away, to make sure that the team is in the right formation. I mean, those details are incredibly important. And even if your QB1 is out, there's strong leadership. And if you coalesce around the backup, whomever it is, and the team understands, because guys go down, guys come out, that, I know it's not really the next man up scenario, but it's more of a rally scenario. And I'm not going to say Stephon Diggs is going to make a better, cut on a route, or someone's going to block a little bit better, but they are not going to give up on the guy.
Right.
There's too much at stake.
Right. So you brought up Brock Purdy and the 49ers situation last year. And for those that aren't necessarily aware, the Niners, went through a slew of quarterbacks, or went through all their quarterbacks, and basically played Brock Purdy because they had to. And they found out in a game situation that this kid was aggressive, threw into tight windows, had crazy anticipation, and just was turning it like, who is this guy? I remember watching that game that he played, that he came in, and I was like, holy cow, this kid can throw the football.
Well, if you watched him, I think he went to Iowa State, right?
I think so, yes.
He was a Cyclone. So I have a tendency to try to follow some of the kids that leave Arizona, and that was one of them. And for some reason, we pick up a couple of those games. I think that's Big 12. I can't remember. And I thought, wow, this kid can play.
Right.
And again, I think if we sit here and we get too concerned about it, it's a little, we're not whistling past the graveyard either, but those guys, they're going to make the right decision. If they think they need to bring somebody in, it's going to happen.
Right.
But if they don't, and we settle with these two guys on our roster, then, you have to translate your belief as a fan into that staff and into that team. And in the same way that you go to a game and you cheer for Josh Allen, if it's Kyle Allen or Matt Barkley, then you're going to do the same, I hope.
Yeah.
And I know you will.
Yeah. Well, the question that I have, where I was going with Brock Purdy, is, you came in the league in 92, and you played with Jim on the same team as Jim until 96. Jim retired in 96. And then you were here for several years where there was, Todd Collins was here. Alex Van Pelt was here. Was there another quarterback that started while you were here that you blocked for? Was it
Rob Johnson, Doug Flutie?
Oh, God. So you were here. So you were here. This is perfect. Lining up perfect. And obviously we know what the Bills did. They went and got Rob Johnson after he had a couple good games, I believe, in Jacksonville, right? Is where he was.
Right.
And then Doug Flutie was coming back from Canada, wanted a shot in the NFL. So the Bills kind of gave him a shot, which was great. So the question that I have is there a time, when you talk about guys getting drafted, the biggest, hardest label, and you were one of them to overcome, is, well, he's a first-round draft pick. That guy is a first-round draft pick. Oh, that's the guy X team took in the first round. Like, first-round draft pick is the heaviest label, and I would dare to say that the second heaviest label in any NFL draft is Mr. Irrelevant, the last guy taken, and it's a horrible moniker that they put on players, but we know why it is. That guy has a tendency not to make it in the NFL. Brock Purdy was the last pick taken in the NFL. So this is where I'm going with all of this. Was there, how does it work in the locker room when you've got a guy on the bench? Because I can't believe for a second that Brock Purdy got into a football game and flicked a switch and became this dude that nobody had ever seen. And Shanahan's on the sideline going, who is this guy? You know what I mean? There had to be a feeling of, no, that kid can play. He can play. So when you were in the locker room, were there ever moments like that where you're sitting there with the locker guy next to you, your locker mate, going, I don't know, man, but Billy Bob over there, not Billy Bob Horton, but you know what I'm saying? Jimbo over there or whoever, that guy can throw a football.
Yeah. So it's interesting, you're in the locker room, you're watching film, you're not seeing a lot. I would never see the backup quarterback throwing because he's throwing for the defensive set.
Scout team.
Right?
Scout team. That's right.
Now I'd see it on the field a little bit, but I might be, having a water and trying to catch my breath. The coaches, though, they watch all that film. They're breaking down all that stuff. And I think that you find guys that are really into the game insofar as preparation, understanding offensive sets, and that delivers confidence to staff, right? This guy knows what he's doing. And I think they would have known that. There's no way they wouldn't. And then they look for other things like, do the guys like him? Does he have a good rapport with the squad?
Right.
Right. What's their fit with the team? And I think you gotta weigh that as you are assessing a guy's ability to go out and play the game.
Gotcha.
So the converse to that is they had nowhere else to go, right? I mean, that was it. They were like, okay, we are down to our last guy.
Out of the barrel.
Yeah. And holy cow, we thought he was good in practice. We liked him, but again, Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft. The whole draft is a crapshoot.
Yes.
So we're just going to go with the guys that we feel fit the format. Smart, attention to detail, on time for meetings, whistle while you work, run between drills. And those are the kinds of guys everybody wants.
Yeah, gotcha. And I don't know what's going on. John DeFazio, we have your super chat, but for some reason, the chat has been disabled for the live stream. I don't know what's going on. So to everybody that's watching live right now with us, YouTube flicked over, and I'm looking at a message here.
Did we not pay our YouTube bill? John just paid the bill. Come on.
That's a great question. But for some reason, the chat has been disabled. I know Jay Spence was just in the comment section. I don't know if he has the ability to look into this or not. But John, we're going to read John DeFazio. We're going to read your question. John, I want to know about your thoughts on Cyrus. He seemed to have a solid game, especially in one-on-one pass protection. Can hand placement be corrected by the start of the season?
Oh, that's a really good question, John. And when it's not a good question, I usually say to Joe later on, what a terrible question. So look, hand placement in pass protection is a career-long battle, just like you at work are always trying to correct things that you're doing wrong or get better at things. These are moving targets. The way I coach it is it's all about eye placement. Eye placement comes before hand placement because where you're looking, your hands are going to go.
Right.
So before all that happens, it's the type of coaching you get. I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful that even in the NFL, there are some technique coaches who are really kind of drilling down, taking the time to look at player performance and pulling them aside before practice, after practice, during film, and say, hey, we really got to focus a little bit more here. Your feet are in great position. Your body is in great position. You need to strike. Now, just remember, and I told my son this, I tell my younger son the same thing. I tell all the kids I coach. When you go to punch, you are vulnerable. You miss. And sometimes, confidence, it's peaks and valleys with confidence where you feel like you're just stabbing a guy every time. You're on point. And then sometimes something happens and then you start doing a bear hug or, you're trying to place your hands rather than firing them in there. And there's a mental aspect to that is, it's a constant battle. Think about a quarterback throwing into tight windows, the ganas you have to make those throws. And you can't, just like when you're hitting a pitching wedge, you start decelerating and you don't hit through the ball, good things will not happen.
Right.
But when you're extended, you are in a position of weakness. The hands come down. It's really hard to recover. So your natural thought is, if I walk up, John, and I hug you, you're not getting away.
Right.
But if I reach out to grab you and you knock my hands down, you could be past me. So, if there are issues there, I got to believe that, you're really continue to work on that stuff. But you should do that anyway. Guys are always trying to improve their game. I watched my own film. I stole from other people. I was always trying to say, what can work? What can make me better?
That's good. That's super good. Speaking of the offensive line, that's probably where most of the questions have been that I've seen talked about outside of QB2, and QB2 is probably a little bit of a knee jerk. It's a little early to be, as much as I did a big segment on it yesterday, it's a little early to be, flushing Kyle Allen out of this franchise. But what are your thoughts? Where are your thoughts from what you saw on in this football game against the Colts? As far as there's a lot of concern around the tackle play. I think, obviously Spencer Brown, got hurt in practice a little bit. But just wondering what your overall overarching thoughts are in regards to just what you saw from the offensive line. I thought there was moments where they did really well, especially in run blocking.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I wasn't able to sit and watch the game like I normally do. I didn't get a chance to review the film, but as I watched it, if nothing pops out to me that's shockingly bad, I tend to go with, the performance was fair or good.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see anything that made me go, holy cow, we're going to have repeats here and there. I get that question a lot as a former offensive lineman. And, it's funny. It was a slippery slope, right? The offensive line was not fantastic last year. I thought they were good. They weren't great. But as the offseason continued, they got worse and worse somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It went from not great to a catastrophe to worst offensive line in the league. And I'm thinking to myself, pump the brakes a little bit. And when people ask me if the offensive line is going to be better, my response is the wide receiver room going to be better too? Because if we don't have wide receiver 1, 2, and a slot that make things happen, all the stress falls to the offensive line because the quarterback's going to be looking for 14 every play. You're going to get happy feet. You're going to leave the pocket early. You're going to force throws. So I hate to say it, it sounds cliche, but it's all hand in hand. Do they need to get it better? Yes. But significant improvement in the wide receiver room will help the offensive line.
Very good. Good news. We have another super chat from Jessica Tennis, but more good than that, more gooder news. The live stream chat the comment section is back up. Jay Spencer King fixed it. So if you are watching us live right now and it says disabled, just refresh your screen and the comment section will come back. So Jessica Tennis with the super chat. Jessica and John DeFazio, thank you guys so much for your super chats. Your thoughts on Ryan Vandemark playing at left tackle?
Well, I think he's a natural guard, right?
I think you're right.
I think he's a natural guard, and this falls a little bit into that category of we have questions at tackle. We might need to move people around. Who do we have that can do both? Who can service in the event that Spencer Brown or Deion Dawkins goes down? So my thoughts are, I look at my very good friend Jerry Ostrowski, who played nearly every position on the offensive line. The only one he didn't play was left tackle because I never left.
That's right. That guy right next to me.
That's right. So he played left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. And man, they moved him out to right tackle. And I thought to myself, I don't see it. He played tackle in college, but sometimes guys get into a groove. You think they can't leave that position. Jerry went out on the edge and he played pretty damn well.
Right tackle.
Right tackle. So I think this might just be a little bit of a interview process, right? There was a casting call. You showed up. They want to see if you can sing and dance. You put them out there on the edge. Can you sing and dance at tackle? Because who do we have after that? We need to fill the gap. Yeah. So what do I think of him playing left tackle? I mean, I don't want any of the starters to go down, but if one does, I want the guy stepping up to have had some reps.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to me too, just finishing up on the offensive line. I said this on the show yesterday, just what they're going to do with Ryan Bates. And there was an extended conversation about it on one of the WGR shows today. It might've been the morning show on my way to the gym. And they were just, Ryan Bates to me, Osiris Torrance started at the guard position because I believe at this point, they knew that they wanted Bates to come in and spell Morse as the backup center. So they're not going to move Bates from guard to center in a preseason game. They're like, well, we'll just hold him out and then put him in for Morse, because ideally for them, even last year, Ryan Bates was the guy they wanted to be the backup center, regardless if something happens to Mitch Morse. He can play center pretty well. All that to say this, I want to believe that if Ryan Bates is the 6th offensive player, first guy off the bench, it's because the 5 best guys are out there. And for me, that's wildly important. I'm going to have a difficult time if we see more of what they did a couple of years back, where, well, Ryan Bates as a backup center is far too important to put him in there at guard in case something happens to Mitch Morse. Like, I want the 5 best guys. If Ryan's one of them, play him.
Right. Well, and I can address that. I think you have to put Osiris Torrance in there to get him reps at this league, in this level. Yep. And if you don't start him, He might be going against the thirds by the time he gets in. But
Right.
the guys on the field from Indianapolis are either going to be ones or twos in the first 2 quarters of the game. And you want to find out if your rookie guard can play. That's when he has to go in the game. Ryan Bates is a proven entity.
Yeah.
To address your point, I agree with you. If he's better than Torrance and or better than the left guard, he should be on the field. Don't save a guy. Don't make your sixth guy, who's really your fifth guy, ride the pine because you're holding out and worry that your center is going to go down. So I think it was smart. That's a smart play.
Let's transition in the last couple minutes that we're going to be taking up people's time during this show and talk about cornerback 2. And what's interesting is I think right now about cornerback 2, because I haven't talked a whole lot about CB2, is did Tre'Davious White play in that football game? Because they didn't even call his name. I don't think a ball went at
he had to play. He was out there.
I'm just saying a ball didn't go in his direction. Like they told Richardson, do not throw the football that way.
Let me finish up my last point real quick on Torrance, just so I get this thought out of my tiny little brain. The step up in quality of play from my senior year of college to the NFL was limitless. Like I don't want to say I was shocked. My expectation was I was going to see men every play, and I was going to have my hands full every play, and I was not disappointed. There were guys, this 186 whatever Division I colleges. I played in the Pac-12. My senior year, I probably had 3 games where I'm playing against a guy who I'm like, this guy's not that great. And at this level, regardless of whether a guy makes this team or doesn't make this team, he was still part of a group of upwards of 400 guys that came into the league that is terrific. And, you can never underestimate that. That's why you put the guy in with CB2.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I just love the competition.
Yeah.
Right. It looks like Taron Johnson's is going away with it right now.
Taron Johnson. He's a nickel corner, Taron Johnson. Dane Jackson.
Dane Jackson. I'm so sorry. Apologies to Dane. It looks like he's going away with it, right? But that's all in all not a bad thing.
Sure.
I think Benford is already proven to be a very good player, but coming off your rookie season, you need to kind of resettle yourself and kind of get back to a lot of technique, a lot of understanding of the game. I think there is something to be said of a little bit of like rookie luck, right? Like you and I hitting a good shot on the golf course, so I think he had a little bit of a blessed rookie year despite injury. And Kaiir Elam has a lot to prove.
Yeah.
And the tools are there.
Yeah.
But, I think they're kind of looking at him as he needs to make a mental jump in confidence. So I don't see that this rotation stops for the next couple of games. Dane Jackson has played a lot of football here in Buffalo, and the smarter play is a little bit like the Torrance play. Get those 3 rotating and make sure they all feel comfortable that you're not. You remember, everybody in the chat who has kids, you're like, oh, come on, you gotta chastise them when they're not doing well, but you can't over punish. You don't want to kill the spirit. So I think that's the walk that we're going to see for the next 2 games. Don't kill their spirit. They're all good football players. We just want one to emerge and own the position.
I feel like Dane Jackson got the start because he is the incumbent. I feel like, they're not going to give anything to anybody, even if they are a second-year first-round draft pick in Kaiir Elam. But Dane Jackson is just very much like Levi Wallace. He just continues to do, to your point, exactly what they ask him to do.
Yeoman's work.
Right. He just does what he's asked to do. And if the ball shows up in his hands, he catches it and runs it back as far as he can. I thought it was interesting that Kaiir Elam went in second. But we also know, and this is to where who put in there right there? Is it this one? Matt Byram says he isn't physical enough, which I find absurd. It's not that one. Oh, it's this one from Matt as well. It is curious they drafted Elam if he appears to be a poor fit as a zone defender. And I think that to me is more of the takeaway on Kaiir Elam is they drafted a guy, right, that is a man up corner, which when they drafted him, we were kind of excited about this idea of having a man up corner because I think there's an expectation or an idea on all of our part that Trey can play tough football if he wants to play tough football. And maybe there was a deviation or a shift coming. And then they they kind of began to work him in to play zone. And I don't know that he, to your point about the headpiece, right, getting his mind right, getting the confidence, getting confidence in himself that he can play that position in his own from his own standpoint. It just feels like he's having a hard time with that transition. And I don't know. It's not that I don't know. I don't know enough about NFL football, specifically at the cornerback spot, to know instinctively what the differences are between playing man up in your face football versus being an incredible zone defender, because they're two probably wildly different responsibilities, much like a left tackle and a left guard. They stand next to each other. They do similar things, but the responsibilities are completely different, right?
Yes, I would say that, but you have to be able to do both. I mean, no one's playing lockdown corner every game. You got to play zone defense. If he has a little steeper learning curve, you got to do it. I mean, this defense needs to evolve a little bit. We saw some of that. We saw a little bit more aggressive behavior from the front 6 or 7, which I was very happy to see.
Run blitzes.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, if you're going to do that kind of thing, you're going to have to play some press corner, right? To keep them off the line a little bit. I don't put a lot of stock in that. I mean, if you're good enough to play man lockdown corner, then you're going to have the learning curve. You're going to be able to play out in space and understand, the philosophy of the defense playing in a zone position. And you know what? Some things take time. It'll click.
Is it just a confidence issue then, you think? Trusting what he sees.
I mean, the comment in the chat was, he's a little bit handsy. Everybody has to learn their way around that. I thought Sauce Gardner, probably could have been arrested as he left a few stadiums with the way he undressed a few guys.
Jay Spence King disagrees. I say this all the time to Spence. He disagrees with me.
On what?
That he's handsy. That Sauce Gardner got away with putting his hands on receiver.
There's no question about it. But that's just the way the proverbial cookie crumbles every now and again. Just like batters get into a funk or get on a streak. These things kind of happen, and that's the mental part of the game that plays with you a little bit. Your confidence can wane when you're either struggling or you're perceiving yourself to struggle.
Right.
And that again goes back to, what's the job of the staff to make sure that they're coaching them up, that, it's encouraging and, the guys are pulling together. And by and large, I'm not upset about anything that I see.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's not a bad spot to be in for an NFL franchise to have 3 guys that can play the position. I mean, Elam is not garbage, right? I mean, he clearly has an unseated Dane Jackson as the number one first round draft pick rather. And Dane Jackson was a 7, correct? Right? Wasn't he a 7th round draft pick?
I'll go with that.
And then Benford was 5th or 6th, someplace late as far as that goes. But I think
Brock Purdy was what?
Mr. Irrelevant, right? But crapshoot to your point. But I think there's an aspect of we put maybe more pressure on them than they necessarily deserve. But it's a good position to be in for the Buffalo Bills. They've got 3 guys that they can continue to work and continue to practice and continue to put in situations and continue to prepare until one refines himself, right? I mean, Dane Jackson is probably who Dane Jackson is. He's probably hit his ceiling. The other 2 guys probably have some room to grow. But until then, we've got Dane Jackson.
Yeah, and I think that a more aggressive defense is going to benefit the corners. They're going to be in a little bit more press man. The safeties are going to be floating over the top. The middle of the field gets open. But if you got guys that are good on, at the line of scrimmage, I think that'll serve us pretty well. And I also believe that, McDermott isn't going to be putting the entire defense out there for everybody to dissect right now.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think it's really a whole card, so to speak, but they're working on things in practice that they're not putting out there. And it may not be because they don't want to show it. It might just be that we need to get better at this.
Yeah.
We're going to, and the way football works when you show up to training camp is you install offenses and defenses in pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to install this. And I do recall that when I joined the Bills, the installation had been done for 3 or 4 years. So all these guys, it was old hat to them. And it was just coming at me like, holy moly. I mean, my notebook looked like a drunken second grade teacher with a red pen. I was like, what did this note mean? I wrote it so damn fast, I can't even read it myself. What's wrong?
That's amazing. That's a great takeaway. That's super, super good. Is there anything
that my second grade teacher was a drunk?
Yes, that was the takeaway that I was referring to. Is there anything else from that football game that maybe sticks out to you real quick? Just kind of a quick hit before we get out of here.
Yeah, I thought it was curious that they didn't work the tight ends a lot.
I don't think it was curious at all. I think it was, to your point,
by design,
keeping one in the hole.
Well, again, I think it was curious. I thought he'd see a little bit more balance and kind of get the young guy out there a little bit more. But I think the bigger problem to solve is the competition at wide receiver 2 and slot. So It made sense. It didn't look like a balanced game. I'm excited about the DK squared, right? I mean, it's going to be, I think it just delivers such a great opportunity to expose the middle, to expose the seam. It really can, if you got guys on the outside that can press deep, and then, 2 guys, the way we run a little bit of this flex, if you get Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox in that, the slot position, and the safeties have to play over the top, they're a little bit more concerned about, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, then as these tight ends are hitting the seam, if you beat the linebackers, you beat the nickel corner, that's a lot of pressure on the safeties. You play it too far to the middle. Stephon Diggs gets the 9 route. So that should create some challenges that I'm excited to see.
Awesome. That was great. And this was a great first show back. First John Fina show of the 2023 Buffalo Bills season. We got a long way to go. We've got a lot of good football, a lot of fun in front of us. Damar Hamlin coming out was incredible.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. Wow. I mean, wow. It's one thing to be in practice, but to come out there live, put the uniform back on, the full getup,
and be aggressive.
That was chilling and be impressive.
Going head first into tackling big dudes, right?
Right. Yeah. That's a heartwarming moment for all of Buffalo, I think, for the nation, for the country, for the world, for everybody who's paying attention to that. It's just a fantastic development. And I mean, who can't cheer for Damar Hamlin? I mean, there's something wrong with you if you're not.
100%. So thank you everybody for joining us for the first installment of the Off Tackle with John Fina show. Thank you for the super chatters that came through and asked us some really good questions. Thank you for everybody that was in the comments section and hung out with us for this episode. Appreciate everyone that's also going to listen to this in podcast form. We are going to be back next week and the week after that, all the way through until there's no more weeks left to talk about. I believe, right?
Buffalo Freddy just showed up. You're late.
we are closing the show. Dan shows up.
Thanks for the party, Buffalo Freddy. What a great time we had. Joe, thank you. Jay Spence, thanks for showing up. Everybody in the chat, much appreciated. Love the comments. Love the comments and the questions. Comments. Keep bringing it. Pass the word. We're having a great time.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned into the Off Tackle with John Fina show on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. That over there is John Fina. You can find him where?
I can be found here, there, and everywhere. It's like a Cat in the Hat verse.
At John Fina on Twitter. Follow John. He's a great follow. He does interact and respond. He's a wonderful dude. For me, for John Fina, for everybody at Buffalo Rumblings, appreciate you guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills.